Okay, we're live.
Welcome, Facebook Live. This is Talk Recovery on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. And if you've been listening to the show today, we unfortunately couldn't get our first guest, so stay tuned next week for Dr. McKegney. That was going to be a good show, but we had some problems with the telephone. When we come back from this song, we're going to be speaking with Jillian and her personal story. Francis is going to do the interview.
Hi, Francis.
Hi!
Hello. All right, well, we're going now we're cutting the song. Mics are on.
And welcome back to Talk Recovery on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Thanks for listening to us today. Without our first interview, we got a chance to just sort of, talk. And thanks for listening. This is back to the second half of the show in our personal stories. And we have Jill with us in studio today. And Francis, take it over.
Hello, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm here with Jill, and we're going to talk about Jill and life before recovery. Dun dun dun. So when Giuseppe asked if I knew any women that would be interested in me, so who's Jill? What's her story? Whatever. I'm like, oh well, basically she's like a beautiful super mom on Instagram and all the rest of it, and apparently she's in recovery from addiction, and you would never know it looking at your Instagram. But yeah, so you have. So can you tell us a little bit about what life looked like for you before you came into recovery?
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. And that's so kind of you to say. I'm like, it is Instagram after all, though. It's not real life. But no, actually, I do kind of use my Instagram as like a platform for recovery, and like being a mom in recovery. But it wasn't always that way. I grew up I went to high school in Chilliwack. I have a twin sister who's also in recovery, and we kind of started, drinking and doing drugs like at a really young age. But at the time, I just thought it was like normal, high school stuff, and and then it just, when we moved to Vancouver when we were like 18, and I remember saying to her, like, okay, like this is it, like we're moving, we're going to put all this behind us, and, we're not going to tell anybody about like our drinking and drugging, and we're going to hang out with good people, and we're going to college. And it was like that thing, when you don't know that you have a disease, and you don't know that like when you move to Vancouver, you're still you. So we moved to Vancouver, and, made all these promises to each other that we weren't going to, live that way anymore. But of course, like a couple weeks later, and we're back doing the same thing. And it was pretty difficult, like as we know about the disease, as I know today, it's progressive, and it certainly was, right? So yeah.
So you're 18 at that point, and then did you and your twin sister, did you go through your addiction together? Did you separate at a certain point? Or?
We separated, we both did like a geographical change,
right?
Which at the time you don't know if that's what you're doing, but we're like, it's Vancouver, we got to get out of Vancouver. And we were, in our early 20s, and she went to Australia and I went to England, and anyways, we're twins, we both got pregnant. So we decided to move back to Canada, and then that was it, right? I remember like with her, we're like, okay, like, and that pregnancy in 2005 or whatever it was the first time that I had went, multiple days without drinking or using drugs, right? And I felt amazing, right? I was like, oh wow, this is great, like to not wake up hungover, to like go to sleep, like, you know what I mean, instead of passing out, and she felt the same way, and I think we both at that point, like, didn't picture doing drugs or drinking again, right? And same old promises, right? And anyways, we had our daughters, and then, shortly afterwards picked up again, right? And then off it went running, but this time we're mothers, right? So
what was that? How did that change things? This time we're mothers. How does that change the drinking and the drug use?
Well, it makes it a lot scarier, because you are making choices, right? Like you're choosing drugs and alcohol over your child. You're neglecting your duties as a mother, right? And you're not able to do the best job that you want to do, right? And like, unfortunately, those little girls suffered a lot, right? A lot of neglect and, a lot of, uncertainty and like chaos, right? And, but at this point, like, we still didn't realize, I knew nothing of like AA or NA. Like maybe I saw like an AA commercial or something once, but I didn't know, I never thought I had a disease, right? And I also, ended up supporting my habit through escorting. So I was working in the sex trade, and so I never ran out of money. And I think looking back, that kept me sick for a lot longer, right? Because I had money, right?
So when did you get to the bottom of that? Like, so you're escorting
so
your
2011.
mother.
It was 2011, and we just couldn't keep up. Like, we were just really sick, and I think the girls were like 4 years old, and we were just desperate. And my sister found the Vancouver Recovery Club, and she was like, oh, there's this, we were living in East Van at the time, and she was like, there's this place called the Vancouver Recovery Club, like, let's go there, let's see if they can help us, like, because we wanted to stop, we wanted to be good moms, we wanted to live a good life, but we didn't know how to stop, right? And we couldn't stop. So I went to my first meeting there, and we originally went there to the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous to get off cocaine, and we'd come in with our water bottles filled with vodka. Like, how can you help us? But I can laugh about it now, but
we're not here for the alcohol help, we're just here for the drug help.
Totally. And then this lady who was running the VRC at the time gave me a big book, and I was like, what? Right? Of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was my first introduction to that, and although we didn't stay sober, we knew there was help, and we kind of knew like there was hope, right?
If I say you lived in a world where a 12-step program didn't exist, like would you have known how to access help without the Vancouver Recovery Club, without the woman handing you the book, without like how we were just saying in the beginning of the show, that like if you don't know somebody, it's really hard to get in, like align yourself with recovery. Like if that didn't exist, like would you have found it, do you think?
I don't know. I don't think so, because like for me, I didn't hang out with anybody. I didn't know anybody that was sober, right? I only hung out with people that partied. I hung out with other, working girls. Like I lived in this lifestyle that I didn't know any different. And I think it was just by the grace of God that she found that, like, looked up and found the Vancouver Recovery Club. I mean, like now you can Google anything, but like, I don't know, for some reason we didn't think, I didn't think treatment centers, I didn't think of ever going away, like I didn't think of any of that, right? I didn't know about detox. I did, however, I did know about detox, because somebody at the Vancouver Recovery Club did tell me about that, so I tried that, but
what was it like for you to like walk into recovery? Like, was it
so
just
scary?
Do you know what I mean? Like it is really like a different world. It's like almost like, have you ever watched that movie show Stranger Things? How there's like the underneath or whatever. I don't know what they call it, but
seen that.
anyways, it's something like
I don't have time for TV, Francis.
Right?
I got 3 kids.
Right? But like the flip side of the world, basically.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's kind of like recovery is that flip side, because especially like as a working girl and you're making money and you're beautiful and you have the clothes and the shoes and all that kind of stuff. It's all like, materialistic and ego, right? And you go into recovery and it's like, live honestly, live simply, help others. Like,
Well,
like what was that like?
I remember those first like few meetings, and I remember hearing people sharing about like, like they were like coming from where we are right now, like at this radio show, like they were coming from the downtown east side, like without anything when they came into recovery. And I was thinking like, oh, I still have, things like you said, the material things, but what I didn't have was like that self-esteem and like that self-worth. Like, you know what I mean? I hated myself, right? Like I had nothing. I was like soulless. So like, yeah, I had things, but I didn't have like all the internal things that like I'm so grateful to be building back today, right? But I think at that point it was like, well, I still want to work this job, and I don't know any different. So, but I want to be sober, right? So it was like my will and like versus God's will, and I wasn't willing to change everything. So I didn't stay sober, right? And I wasn't helping anyone, and I was going to a meeting here or there, but I wasn't totally.
You weren't all in.
I guess I hadn't really like burnt my life to the ground, as they say, like in my eyes at the time.
Right.
Looking back, I'm like, wow, your life was so unmanageable, right? Like,
You're like, no, I'm still managing. What
Yeah.
do you mean?
because I had money, but you know what I mean? At what cost?
And a lot of people do sort of get stuck on the whole spiritual concepts of the program, and they're like, oh, I'm not this, and it's a cult and all that kind of thing, right? And so I know for myself, like when I got to the point where I was like, okay, fine, like I surrender, basically, like I will do it your way. Like I'll stop trying to like have one foot in my old life and one foot in my new life. I'm in, like I'm not going to make it unless I go all in. So is that like a similar sort of circumstance that you had with just saying like, okay, like tell me what to do?
Yeah, I mean, like I would get some months of sobriety here and there, and when I met my partner, you know, my daughter I think was like 5 at the time, and he basically, it was weird, like he didn't condone it, but he didn't condemn it, like kind of like my parents, like about my work choices or whatever, but of course like it was hurting him, and you know, but my drinking and drugging, like it was escalating, and I was sick, right? And he was like, you know, I'm gonna walk away, like you're gonna lose your daughter, like you need to go back into the rooms and you need to do whatever it takes. And you know, so I tried again, and anyways I got pregnant. So I stayed sober throughout my pregnancy, and kind of went to meetings here and there, but I wasn't really doing it. I was doing it more for him and my older daughter, right? And I think that was like the wrong reasons. And you know, one of the turning points for me was after I had my second daughter. She was like a month old, and I picked up again, and I went off, and you know, on this other tear I was on, and I ended up trying to take my own life. You know, I got to that point that they talk about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, where you can't, you know, live with drugs, you can't live without them, like you're at that jumping off point. And I tried to take my own life, and you know, I'll tell you guys, when I woke up in the hospital, and like I had now social services involved, which I had never had, which they probably should have been in hindsight, but this, you know, I have the police, I have, you know, all this stuff, neighbors, everything, all these consequences, my family, you know, who I've scared and hurt. And I got out of the hospital, and I went that morning, and I snuck out of my house, and I was standing in the liquor store with a bunch of booze after that had just happened. And that's when I fully conceded to my innermost self, like that I'm an alcoholic, right? I don't know why it wasn't before that. I still try to convince myself, like, oh, maybe I'm not, maybe, you know, but that point, and I wish I could say it, and then I put all the booze down, and that's the end of my story, and I've been sober ever since, but no, so off I went on a tear. But you know, it's just, it's like we know, right? Cunning, baffling, powerful. I just can't believe that I got to a place where, you know, I didn't feel my life was worth living, you know, because now, today, is so different.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That's like, wow, like that's courageous. That I love this show, man. Like there's somebody, I just, like, it's almost like I'm getting goosebumps because I know somebody out there is listening to this and just related like so much to like what you just shared, because I've had a moment like that myself, and those are the things that you don't hear in everyday life. So thank you for sharing that. It took a lot of courage. And yeah, so life today is a lot different. Yeah, there was a lot of wedding pictures.
Yeah. I'm an oversharer.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. You looked gorgeous. You had a gorgeous family. You and your husband are clearly in love and clearly like really accept and love each other. And it was like a huge celebration. But especially when I saw the wedding photos, I had no idea of the backstory. So like, I just see super mom. She's gorgeous. She's got this beautiful family. They all match, you know, like it's like, you know, it's the Instagram dream, right? But like, so what was that? Do you have like a moment at your wedding where you really like, it really kind of hit you, like how far you've come?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because so my last relapse, we were in Hawaii, and you know, James had wanted to propose to me, and I was drinking, right? So every morning he'd be like, can you please like stay sober today? Like, you know, and he had, right? And I was just like, yeah, whatever, I'll try. But and you know, the poor guy, right? Like, I've just put him through hell and back, and like he's just amazing. But so anyways, he was supposed to propose on New Year's Eve. He proposed on January 3rd. I stayed sober that day. It was a great day. We got engaged at McKenna Beach. And there's a story behind that. So just quickly, so, you know, I promised him, I'll stop drinking, you know, when we get back to Vancouver, like, you know, just kind of let me just get this out of my system kind of thing. And, and got back to Vancouver on like the 8th of January, and my sobriety date is January 19th. So I didn't stop drinking, and actually what had happened was, so it was this day that was just, he'd had enough, everyone had enough, like I've just done so much damage, and he was like, you're going to your doctor and you're getting antabuse, like you can't stop, you'll take that, right? So he made me take it, and he didn't leave my side. He was holding my hand all day long, like, because I was just like a mess, and thank God, right? So that night I was putting my youngest to bed and the kids to bed. I had 2 daughters at the time, and there was a knock at the door, and it was car 87, and they were there to apprehend the children because someone had called social services. But by the grace of God, that day I was sober, right? If they would have came the day before or the day before that, like, the children probably would have been gone, but I was sober that day. So I let them into my home, and, they didn't take them, thank God, but that was the last time, right? So I've been sober ever since that. And, because it was so scary for me, like, to think like, oh my God, that, like, and I heard other women and other moms in recovery saying how they were fighting to get their children back. And I was like, I do not want that to be my bottom, right? But it was like, yeah, I haven't lost my kids yet, right? Like, it's going to happen. So, anyways, we went back to Hawaii just recently for a family moon, just getting back to the wedding thing. So, we got married, and it was a fantastic day, and just so grateful, right? And, but of course we have 3 kids, so we can't go on a honeymoon, who's going to take 3 kids? So we went on this family moon back to Hawaii, back where things had gotten pretty bad, right? And it was like I was seeing it for the first time. And we went to McKenna Beach, which we named our youngest baby McKenna after this beach where he had proposed to me. So we took her there. It was just like, I can't even tell you, like, I was going to meetings in Hawaii, like, I think I went to like 13 meetings in 14 days, and like, just can't believe it. Just, cannot believe my life today, right? Like,
I'm so happy that you came in and that you shared all this with us, and like, I hope somebody out there heard something today by Jill, and thank you for being on Talk Recovery Vancouver today. We really appreciate you coming in and having the courage to tell your story, and we gotta end it there, folks, but thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, on the topic of what are some of the strengths in the downtown east side, after hearing today's show and the personal stories so many times before, it is that hope that's out there, that someone's listening, and whether they're outside our front door right now, or it's not exactly those people that we're reaching out to. We're reaching out to people without the hope right now, wherever they are, in 12-story penthouse, or stuck in some really poor living conditions. We just hope that at some point in our message and our time on the radio down here, that people start to understand and relate and gain some more knowledge on what's going on. And we've spoken with the Ann and Livingston from the Vancouver Area Network Drug Users Insights, all of these amazing things that are going on down here. We've spoken with these people, and let's just not forget that sometimes it feels like it's not moving forward, and it's always great to end our radio with a personal story. So thanks again to Jill and Dr. McKegney. Thanks for waiting by the phone, and we'll try to work that kink out. But stay tuned for that interview in the future. We're going to end with a song by The Cure, Pictures of You.
Ooh, love it.
Talk Recovery, Vancouver Co-op Radio.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.